In the next few minutes, I'm going to explain to you what inflation is, when is it good, and when is it bad. I'm Peter Chabris with Lockbox, where we provide lessons for realtors in leads, listings, and leadership. And we're continuing our series today on kind of the economic fundamentals that drive our industry. And today we're going to talk about something that's in everybody's mind, and that is inflation. It's been really the only conversation that the federal government wants to talk about over the past 18 months. Now, what is inflation? Simply defined, it's a general increase in prices. That's the easiest way to define it, which naturally corresponds in a decreasing purchase value of money. Generally speaking, inflation is neither good nor bad, but when it goes up, your money does buy less, and so you can perceive that as being bad. Now, good inflation is targeted as 2% per year. That is to say, if generally speaking, prices of things don't increase by more than 2% per year, you have healthy inflation. Why is it considered healthy inflation? We actually don't know. It's an arbitrary number that the government in New Zealand originally picked back in the 80s, and it kind of stuck as a target number because it wasn't too much and it wasn't zero and it wasn't negative. And so arbitrarily, all kind of the nations of the Western economies have adopted that 2% rule as their target, or that 2% rate as their target for annual inflation. So why is it good? A little bit of growth of the dollar, or a little bit of inflation, actually makes it easier for our government to pay its debts. When our government borrows money and our dollars are increasing a little bit in purchasing power and revenue, tax revenue is collected, it makes it a little bit easier for our government to repay debts to other governments. So now, what happens when inflation is bad? It's bad when it goes up above around 2%, typically because a couple things happen. The first is consumers can buy less stuff with the incomes that they make. Not good. Additionally, it expands the disconnect, or the divide, between consumers that are basically paycheck to paycheck and those that have resources. Disproportionate distribution of income is increased by expanding inflation. It creates social discord, right? And so the long-term impact of high inflation is social discord, which of course no governing body ever wants to see. The other thing about inflation is that it self-perpetuates, right? If people think prices are going to be higher tomorrow, they buy things today, they pull out all the inventory of that thing, and then that necessarily pushes prices up. So it starts to repeat itself. And then finally, if inflation gets too bad, it can actually trigger a recession, which is of course one of the worries that our government has had over the last 18 months. And so for all of those reasons and a couple others, that's why the federal government and any government wants to rein in inflation as quickly as possible. What's the main tool that the federal government has to take down inflation? Well, it's raising the federal funds rate, or the Fed. The Federal Reserve System raises the federal funds rate. That's a different topic, and guess what? We're going to talk about that next week. So now you can speak intelligently about what inflation is, how it happens, what its impact is, and next week we're going to talk about how that specifically impacts mortgage rates, which absolutely impacts our industry. I'll see you in a week. Thanks, guys.